Hi there, welcome back to the Schwowin's Nest. My name is Sandra. If you're new to my channel, I'd like to welcome you. If you are a current subscriber, thank you so much for your support. Now that the holidays are almost over, it's time to start working on some winter decor. I found this scrap piece of wood in my garage, and I'm just taking some coarse grit sandpaper and taking off any of the splinters or rough edges to it. It's about 5.5 inches wide and about 48 inches or 4 feet tall. I'm going to use some regular ceiling paint that I have because this is going to be sitting out on my front porch. Although it is covered, I just didn't want to use my chalk paint on it. The technique I'm going to use is to distress it by putting down some paint, a good coat, and then taking my paint scraper and then just scraping the paint off. All the extra paint will come off, but you'll see that some of it will stay within the grooves and the grain of the wood, and it just gives it a really neat texture. You wouldn't be able to get this kind of wood grain look using some sandpaper or even wet distressing. So if you have a project where you want the wood grain to show through, this is perfect for it. I'm going to be putting the words "Let It Snow" on my wood plank, and I decided to use some black foam core board to create the letters for the word snow, which would give it a more three-dimensional look. Since the board is 5.5 inches wide, I'm measuring 4 inches wide for the letters and 6 inches tall. I'm starting with the letter W, and I'm just going to be basically freehanding this with my ruler and just marking out with a pencil how I want the letter to look, and then I'm going to use my craft knife to cut it out. If you don't want to do some freehand letters, you could by all means use a stencil to trace out some thicker letters. You could print some off on your computer and then cut them out and trace them that way. There's a bunch of ways that you could figure out how to do some letters, but I just like to kind of wing it and see what happens as I go along. When you're using tools like a craft knife, it's always good to have a good quality knife and something that also locks the blade in place. The other thing that would have been really helpful for me was to have a cutting mat underneath so I could really press and go through with one stroke. Because I didn't have a mat, I had to flip over some of the letters and cut through from the other side. Now that the letters are all cut out, I've just placed them onto the board, and I'm using some black craft paint to paint the letter O. Once that paint dries, just wait till you see what I do with it. So because my sign is going to be standing out on my front porch, I'm going to use Weld Bond glue, which is a more high adhesive glue, and it's meant for styrofoam, wood, ceramics, glass, and it has a really strong hold. So I will be sure that my letters won't pop off due to the changing weather conditions. I'm going to paint the words "Let It" onto the sign, and I'm using my Craft Smart paint pen in black, and I'm also using my iPad. I just went online and I found a style of font that I thought was cute, and I'm just zooming the letters in so I can see what they look like and then just drawing them on. They're not going to be perfectly the same, but that's okay. If you want your letters really perfect, then I would suggest to use a stencil, or if you have a Cricut, then go ahead and use that. I've got these styrofoam balls left over from when I was doing some topiary trees for Christmas, and I'm going to follow the halfway line on the ball, and I'm going to open the blade of my craft knife really long, and this is where I mentioned before that it's good to have one that locks the blade in place, and this one does that. And I'm going to very carefully cut the styrofoam ball in half. I'm going to use a pencil to poke a hole in it and use the pencil as a holding stick so I can work with the styrofoam ball. And if you saw any of my other videos about winter decor, I've been into making snowballs with kosher salt. So I am using some of the Weld Bond glue. I'm going to use a paintbrush and brush it all on, and then I'm going to dip and pour the kosher salt on top of the styrofoam ball so it looks like a snowball. When you're using the glue, some of the salt is going to fall off. That's okay. I've got a strategy. I'm going to use some hairspray, give it a couple of really good coats, and that is going to dry and glue the salt onto the styrofoam ball. So when I move it around and put it in storage, I'm not going to lose all sorts of salt all over the place. Once the styrofoam ball was completely dry, I used some hot glue and Weld Bond glue to glue it onto the letter O that I had painted onto the sign. This next project is using some more bits of scrap wood that I have hanging around, and I'm going to glue them together and make some little snowmen out of them. So once I've got them how I want them to look or be, I'm going to use some hot glue and I'm just going to glue them together. So these little critters are looking pretty cute already, but I do need to paint them white because snowmen are white. So I'm using the same ceiling paint that I had left over from the previous project, and I'm going to just paint the front and the sides of these little snowmen. I'm just using a really cheap bristle brush, and I'm not worried about filling everything in. I do want some of the wood to show through so they look a little distressed. No snowman is complete without some buttons, so I'm using some of these little upholstery tacks, and I'm going to just tap them in place. What you want to make sure when you're using dry pieces of wood like this, these are pallet boards. Pallet boards are dried and they're really strong and tough, but they can also split very easily. So I'm just going to make sure that I go just enough into the wood that these little nails will stay, but I'm not going to go too far that I split the wood. When I'm working with tiny nails and screws, I tend to use my needle nose pliers to hang on to the nail or the screw, get it started, and then I can let go. The last thing I need to do for these snowmen is make sure that they can stand up on their own. So I've just got these other little scrap pieces of wood, and I'm going to hot glue both of these snowmen onto their own little base so they can stand up properly. I really love how both of these projects turned out. I think they're really cute. If you want to see more of what I do to decorate my front porch for winter, stay tuned to my channel for my next video. I hope you enjoyed the video and got some inspiration to create some trash to treasure winter decor for your front porch. If you did like the video, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and don't forget to click the bell to get notified when I upload new videos. Thanks for watching.